Hello. Hey everyone. What's up, Bigfoot? Glad you could join. What's up, Hope? Hey Patrick. What's up, Dee Dee? Hey Katie. Glad you could join. Glad you survived Hurricane Ida. What's up, Annie? Hey Nikki, nice of you to join. Hey Petri. Things like Ida make you feel good about living in the northern part of the country? Hell yeah. I love living in California. We don't have things like hurricanes here. We only have fires, and those are fine. What's up, Sal Luna? You had a nice and productive weekend. What did you do? Uh, I barely did anything. Dun, 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 dun. I just woke up, guys. I took a nap and then I woke up. I was like, oh shit, I got a stream. There's a stream happening. So I hurried up and got ready. So still kind of in sleep mode. The thumbnail looks like a generic Wuxia manhua cover. Hey, I made the thumbnail. You hung out with a buddy, you went hiking, you cooked, and you cleaned. You went hiking in this weather? It's super hot, isn't it? Well, it depends on where you live. What's up, Leslie Ann? Uh, I don't know why this popped into my head. Did I ever tell you guys that one time that I was accidentally racist? I was accidentally racist. Um, so what happened was, let's see. I went to I was going with my brother. We were buying a car for him. So I was going with him to buy a car, right? So we were going around different car dealerships. So we went to this one place. We stopped by this one Toyota dealership, and we walk in, and this guy comes out to greet us, right? One of the salesmen, and this guy was a black dude, right? So at the time, at that day, I was sick, right? I had a cold. Um, so he walked up to us and he extends his hand to shake my hand, right? Now, I didn't want to shake his hand because I was sick, right? I didn't want to get him sick too. So I was being, I was being polite. So instead of shaking his hand, I went like this, like a fist bump. He was like this. He was like, shake hand, shake hand. And I was like, instead of doing that, I was like, yeah. The guy was like, he was like he was not amused. Like I was making fun of him or something. Oh my god. I didn't realize it at the time, right? I didn't want to get him sick. So instead of shaking hand, you just fist bump, right? Less less skin to skin contact. So I did that. I didn't realize it at the time, and then later on, I looked back and I was like, "Oh, was that a little offensive? I hope I didn't offend him." He didn't seem like he was amused. He seemed like he was in a bad mood for the entire time. Like I don't think he liked us, and I think I made a bad impression. Yeah, I was just trying to be nice, but I wasn't trying to be offensive. That was kind of awkward. That was kind of awkward. But yeah, well at least I didn't make him sick, right? What's up, Shaheen? It probably keeps him up at night to this day. I don't think so. I don't think so. Are we there yet in that part when there's Dongfang Bubai? Oh, Dongfang Bubai was a long time ago. We totally passed that chapter. Yeah, that was a long time ago. A couple of chapters ago. You think I was fine? Okay. Yeah, you totally missed many episodes. So we're almost at the end actually. We have like what 5 or 6 more chapters and then we're done with this book. Done. Dun, 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 dun. All right, let's eat a snack and then we get started, right? Look at this. What is this? Piccola. It's like a white chocolate. They call it white chocolate cookies. But we'll see. This looks pretty good, actually. Ooh. 2 of them. Alright. Some ASMR for you. Oof. Yeah, boy. Check it out. Oh, that's pretty good, actually. White chocolate. Oh my god. Oh, I ate too fast. It's getting stuck in my throat. It's a little crunchy, like soft crunchy, and it has a white chocolate taste, so it's really good. This is like an 8 out of 10, man. Yeah, it's like Pocky. You can't figure out why this camera angle makes you physically uncomfortable. Why? What's wrong with this camera angle? Do you want it to be lower? Like that? I don't know. Too much head space? What do you want? More of my body? Like this? Like that? Well, now you only see this friggin' mic, right? Okay, how about this? Think we're good? Can you please get a hi? Hey, Steven! Steven Haas! What's up, Steven? There's a hi for you. This is better? Okay. Alright, I'll do this from now on. How is this better? Why is this better than the other angle? I don't get it. Too much white space on top? Okay, I'll keep that in mind. Do I think that I can secure the camera to a corner of the ceiling and do your streams that way? Like all the way up there? That's even worse. And you'll see my dirty room. Yeah, you guys don't see it right now, but since I just bought a new computer, I tore apart my old computer and I'm selling all the parts. So all this shit is here on the side. You can't see it. But it's very messy. It's very messy. Hopefully I get to sell all of the parts. All right, let's get started. So, what happened last week? So last week, our hero Ling Hu Chong was hiding in the bushes, right? He's hiding in the bushes and he's listening to these elders from the demon sect. They're trying to trap Yue Buchun, his master. So they're digging a trap for him, digging like a pit, right? So he can fall into the pit. But suddenly he hears Ying Ying's voice. Looks like she gets captured by his old master, Yue Buchun. And Ling Hu Chong comes out to save her. She tells Ling Hu Chong the master's secret, right? That he castrated himself to learn this evil resisting martial arts. So, secret is revealed. Ling Hu Chong is disgusted. The master is super embarrassed. And he vows to kill both of them, right? Now, so he fights with Ling Hu Chong. Now, although the master knows this powerful martial arts, he's only a beginner at it, right? He hasn't learned it for a long time. So Ling Hu Chong fares pretty well with him. And as the fight goes on and the master keeps repeating his moves, Ling Hu Chong becomes more confident, right? And right as he was about to stab his master and win the fight, Ling Hu Chong stops because he's like way too loyal. And he goes like, I win. And he tells the master that the master should admit defeat. And the master does admit defeat. And like a true bad guy, he stabs Ling Hu Chong when Ling Hu turns his back, right? Now, it wasn't a fatal injury. So Ling Hu Chong, he rolls on the ground, he tries to dodge everything. The master follows, tries to kill him, but the master falls into the trap. And he falls unconscious because in the trap there's this confusion poison or whatever. So they tie him up and they untie the master wife who was captured by the elders of the demon sect, right? And then Ling Hu Chong is reunited with his master wife, Madame Yue, and they have a nice moment. She still loves him like a son, so which is good. They have a nice moment. He tells her that he can't avenge her daughter's death. Because when her daughter died, she told him to protect her husband, the husband who was the one that killed her. So Madame Yue is filled with grief, and she kills herself, as people in these novels are wont to do. Ying Ying makes Yue Buchun drink the demon sect pill. It's called the 3 corpse brain pill. It's this pill. It's this poison that whenever makes him go crazy, right? So he has to get the medicine from her every year. If not, he'll just go crazy. So it's a way to control the master. And then the master runs away. All right. That's basically what happened. How's that? Dum, dum, dum. Clearly the book is better than the swordsman movies that you watch. Oh, yeah. Because it's a long story, so you can't fit this gigantic story into like an hour and a half, however long that swordsman movie was. Son or stepson? Well, he's not her real son, right? So I guess, well, is he her stepson? I don't think she formally like adopted him, right? So he feels like a son to her. Like she sees him as a son, but he's not her real son. All right, let's do this. Dum, 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 dum. All right, this is chapter 37, Forcing Marriage, Part 1. Isn't he sort of adopted? No, I don't think he was adopted. He was never adopted. So okay, so I guess they they buried the master wife next to her daughter, right? So the daughter and the mother are buried next to each other, and then they take their leaves. Okay. After Ling Huchong and Ying Ying came out from the valley, they walked for a half a day and arrived at a small town. They went to a noodle shop to eat some noodle. Ling Huchong had picked up a few. Wait, Ling Huchong had picked up a few strings of noodles with his chopsticks when he chuckled and said, "We haven't paid our respect to heaven and earth to get married." Ying Ying's whole face immediately became bright red. "Who said I'm going to pay respect to heaven and earth to marry you?" she angrily replied. "We'll get married in the future," said a smiling Ling Huchong. "If you're not willing, then I'll grab you and make you pay respect to heaven and earth." Ying Ying was looking like she was smiling, but not smiling at the same time. You were so well behaved when we were in the valley. Once we came out, you're speaking such improper, crazy talks again." Ling Huchong was still smiling as he replied, "We must definitely be most proper concerning this lifelong great matter. Ying Ying, that day in the valley, I suddenly thought of something. After we become husband and wife, I wonder how many kids we'll have." Ying Ying stood up abruptly with a scowl on her face. "If you keep saying these things, I won't go back with you to Hangshan." All right, I'll stop. Ling Huchong laughed. But he continued, "There are so many peach trees in that valley that it looks like a peach valley. If we have 6 ghosts, wouldn't they become Little Peach Valley 6 fairies?" "How can we have 6 ghosts?" Ying Ying muttered as she sat back down. At the same time she said this, she understood what he meant. This was more crazy talk from Ling Huchong. Her eyes widened, showing the whites all around them. She looked at Ling Huchong and quickly lowered her head and stuffed noodles into her mouth. Her heart was filled with sweetness. "When we go back to Hangshan together, there will be some dirty-minded person, and there will also be people who thought that we've gotten married. I'm afraid you won't be happy hearing such vulgar nonsense," Ling Huchong said. This was exactly what Ying Ying was thinking of. She said, "That's right. It's best if we disguise ourselves as farmers, then no one would be able to recognize us." "You have such a beautiful and lovely face. No matter what we change into, it'll always shock people. When other people see us, they'll secretly praise, 'Hey, such a beautiful girl. What is she doing with a silly little kid? How can such a rare and beautiful flower be inserted into a pile of dung?'" Self-deprecating humor, eh? "But when they look closer, they'll definitely see this rare flower is actually the divine sun moon sex's young lady Ren, while this pile of manure is the person young lady Ren favored, Ling Huchong." "You don't need to be so modest," Ying Ying smiled. "I think when we go back to Hangshan this time, I should become someone ordinary and secretly look around first. If everything's quiet and safe, I'll go there by myself and give up this headmaster position to someone. Then I'll meet with you at some secret place and we'll go down the mountain together. The gods wouldn't know, the ghosts wouldn't know. How can this not be good?" Hearing him say this, she knew he was being considerate to her, so she felt really happy. She is so embarrassed she's so embarrassed to have a boyfriend. She laughingly said, That's very good, but when you go up Mount Hangshan, it's best if you shave your own head and disguise yourself as a Shitai, especially when you are going to see those Shitai." Shitai is a nun. No one would become suspicious of you. Brother Chong, come, I'll help you change to become a little nun. I'm only afraid you might be too good looking." Ling Huchong waved his hand. No, once I see a nun, I'll lose all my bets. If Ling Huchong pretends to be a nun, then I might get bad luck later on. That won't do at all." Ying Ying laughed. "A gentleman is flexible. Why do you need so many taboos for? I have to shave you now." Ling Hucheng also laughed. There's no need to dress as a nun, but to go up Xianxing Peak, I'll need to dress as a woman. But once I speak, people will know that I'm a man. I have an idea. Do you remember the person from the Hanging Temple on Mount Cui Ping beyond the porcelain oven pass? Ying Ying hummed as she thought. Then she clapped her hands and said, "Wonderful, wonderful! There's a mute and deaf servant at the Hanging Temple. Even when we turned that temple upside down, she didn't hear a single thing. When you ask her anything, she just stupidly looks at you. You want to disguise as this person?" "That's right." "All right, let's go buy a gown for you to change into," said Ying Ying, laughing. "You're sure Ling Hucheng isn't ugly?" "I think he's kind of he has a plain looking face, so he's not like a pretty guy. But I don't think he's that particularly ugly either. But he just has a plain face." Ying Ying used 2 silver taels to buy a head of long hair from a country girl. She combed it well before putting it on Ling Hucheng's head. Then she let him change into a farmer woman's gown, and he now looked like a woman. She then daubed some yellow powder and drew 7 to 8 black moles on his face, and she also stuck a piece of medicinal wrap on his lower right cheek. Ling Hucheng looked in the mirror and he couldn't even recognize himself. Ying Ying laughed and said, "Your figure is similar to hers, but your expression isn't. You have to wear this stupid and foolish expression, slow-witted and clumsy-like." Ling Hucheng laughed. "Wearing a stupid and foolish expression is very easy. There's nothing to change. Slow-witted and clumsy, that's also Ling Hucheng's true color." "The most important thing is when someone suddenly tries to scare you from behind, you mustn't give yourself away," Ying Ying cautioned. Along the road, Ling Hucheng practiced to be this mute and deaf woman. The two of them didn't spend the night in an inn, but lodged in an abandoned temple. Ying Ying again and again suddenly shouted behind him, and Ling Hucheng was adequately deaf to it. Within a day, they arrived at the foot of Mount Hangshan. They made an appointment to meet each other in 3 days at the Hanging Temple's field. Ling Hucheng then went up the Xianxing Peak alone, leaving Ying Ying to spend her time nearby on the mountain. You think Ling Hucheng is a 6 out of 10? Alright. Yeah, probably. When Ling Hucheng arrived at Xianxing Peak, it was already evening. He pondered, if I enter the convent and take a look around, martial sisters Yiqing, Zhang Yilin, and the other martial sisters are all very observant, so they'll definitely get suspicious. It's still best if I secretly look around first. He quickly found a secluded mountain cave and slept there until the moon was in the middle of the sky. Then he went to the living quarters of Wuxia convent at Xianxing Peak. As he neared the living quarters, he heard the sound of long swords clashing continuously. Ling Hucheng was startled as he thought, which enemy has come here? He touched the short sword he was hiding inside his bosom and flew towards the sword clashing sound. The sound of fighting was coming from a house more than 100 feet outside of Wuxia convent. There was light shining out from the house's windows. Ling Hucheng rushed beside the house and heard the sound of fighting becoming fiercer. However, when he put his eyes to the window, he immediately felt at ease. It was Yi He and Yi Lin practicing sword, while Yi Qing and Zheng were standing on the side watching. Yi He and Yi Lin were practicing the sword art that Ling Hucheng had taught them before, which was the sword art taken from the cave behind the Cliff of Contemplation on Mount Huashan. The two of them were already quite familiar with the sword art. As they fought, Yi He's sword gradually got faster, and Yi Lin was barely able to keep up. Yi He thrust her sword point straight out in front of her chest. Yi Lin tried to circle her sword to block it, but she was too late. "Ah!" Yi Lin cried out softly. The point of Yi He's longsword was already pointing at Yi Lin's heart. Yi He smiled and said, "Martial sister, you lost again." Yilin was very ashamed as she lowered her head and replied, I've been practicing, but I haven't improved at all. You've improved compared to last time. Let's go again, Yihu said as she hacked her sword down in the middle of the air. Wait, what is Ling Huchong doing? He's just hiding in the bushes? He likes to do that, huh? Little Martial Sister's tired already, Yi Qing interrupted. Go to sleep with Martial Sister Zheng. We'll practice again tomorrow. Yes, Yilin replied. She put her sword back into the scabbard, then took her leave from Yihu and Yi Qing. Then she pulled on Zheng Er's hand and went out of the door. When Yilin turned around, Ling Huchong saw that she looked sad. He thought, this little martial sister is always unhappy. Yihu closed... Yeah, I wonder why, Ling Huchong. Yihu closed the door, then looked at Yi Qing, and they both shook their heads. They waited until the footsteps of Yilin and Zheng Er were far away before Yihu said, I always see little martial sister's mind not being calm. Her heart is always in turmoil. This is a big taboo for people like us. I don't know how to advise her. Yi Qing replied, It's very hard to advise. She must understand it herself. I know why her mind isn't calm. Her heart is always thinking of... Yi Qing waved her hand and said, This is the sacred ground of Buddha. Don't say such kind of talk. If we're not in a hurry to avenge Master, then we could have let her understand it slowly, and there would be no harm. Yihu said, Master used to say, everything in this world is destined, and there's nothing we can do about it, especially when you have to concentrate your mind on something that must be done gradually. If it is forced, then you can easily fall into the world of evil. I see little martial sister is emotional, both inside and outside, and with her kind of personality, she's actually unsuitable to be a person of Buddhism. Yi Qing let out a sigh and said, I've never tasted that kind of feeling before, but in the end, our school must have a Buddhist to be the headmaster. Martial brother Linghu once said that he's only going to be the headmaster of this school temporarily. But first we have to deal with that traitor, Yue Buchun, who killed our master and martial uncles. Ling Huchong was greatly startled when he heard this. How can it be my master who killed their master and martial uncles? Okay, so they think that Yue Buchun killed their masters, right? The three masters that the Hangshan school had. He then heard Yi Qing went on, If we don't avenge this deep hatred, then we, as their disciples, won't be able to sleep and eat peacefully. Yihu said, I'm even more anxious compared to you. All right, we'll intensify her sword training tomorrow. The common saying goes, if you botch it by hurrying it, but not forcing it will let you advance greatly. However, in the past few days, I've seen little martial sister's vigor becoming less and less, Yi Qing said. That's right, Yihu agreed. The two martial sisters picked up their weapons and extinguished the light. They went inside and lay down on their beds. Ling Huchong quietly stood outside the window, and his mind was in turmoil. Why did they say my master killed their master and martial uncles? Also, why do they need to avenge their master before getting someone to receive the school's leadership? And why must they supervise little martial sister Yilin's sword training around the clock? He stood there thinking to himself for a long time, but he still didn't understand the reason. He slowly walked away and thought, I'll ask martial sisters Yihu and Yi Qing later. Suddenly, Ling Huchong saw his own shadow slowly swaying. He raised his head and looked at the moon. The moon looked as if it was hanging on the tip of a tree. He immediately thought of something, and he nearly called out. He thought, I should have realized this a long time ago. Why did they understand this matter, but I didn't? He quickly went beside the wall of a small house and leaned on it so that the guards around the Hangshan school wouldn't be able to see his shadow. When his mind became calm, he thought back to the Shaolin Temple, where Ding Xian and Ding Yi Shitai were killed. At that time, Ding Yi Shitai had already died, and Ding Xian Shitai passed away straight after she had given him the leadership of the school. Ding Xian Shitai didn't reveal who the murderer was. When he checked their bodies, there were no signs of external or internal injuries, nor was there any sign of poison on the two Shitai's bodies. The way they died was really weird, but it was inappropriate for him to open their gowns to check more thoroughly. Later, after he had come out from the Shaolin Temple, Ying Ying told him she opened their gowns and checked on their injuries. She saw two little holes on the skin above their hearts. It looked as if someone had used needles to pierce their hearts. At that time, he had jumped up and said, "Poison needle? Who uses poison needles in Wulin?" And Ying Ying had replied, "Daddy and Uncle Xian's experiences are vast, but they also don't know. Daddy said that it wasn't a poisoned needle. It's actually a sharp weapon aimed at a fatal point that killed them. But the needle piercing Ding Xian Shutai was slightly slanted. He had said, "Yes, when I saw Ding Xian Shutai, she was still alive. This needle had pierced into her chest, so it wasn't done secretly, and they were actually fighting face to face. The person who killed the two Shutai must have been a master with high martial art." Ying Ying said, "That's what my daddy also said. Since we have this clue, it won't be hard to find out who the murderer is." At that time, he had slapped the wall of the cave and said loudly, "Ying Ying, while the two of us still have our lives, we must avenge the two Shutai." And Ying Ying replied, "Yes." Both of Ling Huchang's hands were pressed on the wall, and he couldn't help shivering. He thought, the master who is capable of killing the two Shutai by using a small piece of needle must either be using the sunflower manual or the evil resisting sword art. Dongfang Bubai had always been on top of the Darkwood Cliff, embroidering, so he couldn't have been the one killing people in the Shaolin Temple. Also, looking at his martial art, his needle couldn't have missed when he tried to kill Ding Xian Shitai. Zhuo Langchan had learned the fake evil resisting sword art. At that time, martial brother Lin had only gotten the sword manual, so he couldn't have learned it completely. Perhaps he might not even have gotten the manual at that time. He thought back to the snowfield when he met with Lin Pingzhi and Yue Lingshan, and he thought, that's right, at that time Lin Pingzhi's voice hadn't changed yet. It doesn't matter if he had gotten the manual or not, because he couldn't have completed his learning of the evil resisting sword art then. As he thought till here, sweat started to come out from his forehead. At that time, the only person who could use a needle to fight openly from the front and kill the two Shitai from the Hangshan school must have had a martial art which was not that much higher compared to Ding Xian Shitai, because that one needle did not manage to kill her. There was only Yue Buchun who could have done it. He also thought of how Yue Buchun had deliberately planned to take the headmaster position of the Five Mountains School and had actually allowed Lao Dunois to stay inside the school for more than 10 years without revealing his real identity. At the end, he allowed Lao Dunois to steal a fake sword manual and easily blinded both of Zhuo Langchan's eyes. Ding Xian and Ding Yi Shitai were putting all their efforts in fighting against the merger of the five schools, so Yue Buchun took the opportunity to do away with them and removed a big obstacle to the merger of the schools. This must have been the reason. Why wasn't Ding Xian Shitai willing to reveal her murderer? It must be because Yue Buchun was his master. If the murderer were Zhuo Langchan or Dongfang Bubai, why wouldn't Ding Xian Shitai say it? Okay. So it looks like we figured it out. All right. The person who killed Ding Xian Shitai was Yue Buchun, right? Was the master. And remember, Ling Huchang promised to kill, to avenge the master, right? Promised to avenge Ding Xian Shitai. So Now, since he promised that, now he has to kill his master, right? To fulfill the promise. Ling Hucheng is finally thinking properly. Yeah, finally. His blinders are off. Ling Hucheng again thought back to the day when he was inside that mountain cave, having a conversation with Ying Ying. Yue Buchun had kicked him heavily in the Shaolin temple, but he didn't get injured, and instead, Yue Buchun's leg was broken. Ying Ying felt this was really strange. She said her father had also thought for a long time, and still could not come up with a reason. Ling Hucheng had absorbed the internal energies of many people, and it was true that these internal energies were enough to protect his body, but he must move these internal energies in order to harm others. Unlike the completed internal energy art, which was capable of countering the enemy's attack without him having to move the energies, as he thought of this, he realized Yue Buchun must have deliberately put on such a show for Zhuo Langchan to make sure the leg was really broken. Yue Buchun must have used his own energy to break it, and let Zhuo Langchan see it to show that his martial art was just average and that there was nothing to worry about, so that Zhuo Langchan could go forward with his plan of the merger. Okay, so the master was a little more devious than we thought. The master pretended, when he kicked Ling Hucheng, he pretended to break his legs, right? Just to make a show to everyone that he's not a good fighter, right? So that Zhuo Langchan is not scared of him. Zhuo Langchan had made painstaking effort to finally merge the 5 schools, and when it had finally happened, Yue Buchun had taken everything from him. This reasoning was not hard to understand, but no matter what was said, Ling Hucheng had never had any suspicions toward his master. Perhaps this suspicion had always been buried deep in his heart, and every time he arrived at this thought, his mind immediately fled from it, because he was not willing and did not dare to think about it. Only at this time, when he heard Yihu and Yiqing conversing with each other, that he finally could not avoid it any longer. For his entire life, he had loved and respected his master. Unexpectedly, his master was such a person. Now he felt his life was all meaningless. At that moment, he felt he couldn't even gather enough strength to go to the Hangshan other courtyard to take a look. So he found a secluded and calm field on the mountain and slept. You can't wait for him to kill his master? Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. In the morning of the next day, Ling Hucheng arrived at the Tongyuan Valley when the day was already bright. He walked beside a small creek and saw his disguised form in the water's reflection. He checked his gown and shoes to see that nothing was out of place before he proceeded to the other courtyard. He went around the main entrance, wishing to enter from the side entrance. Just as he arrived beside the gate, he heard noises from the inside. There were many people from inside the courtyard shouting loudly, "Really strange! Damn it, who did this? When did this happen? How come the gods didn't know? The ghosts didn't feel it. The hands and feet are really agile. These people's martial arts aren't bad. How come they could be played by other people without uttering a word?" Ling Hucheng knew something strange had taken place. He stayed by the side entrance and looked inside. The courtyard and the walkways were full of people looking at the branches of a gongsun tree. Ling Hucheng lifted his head up to take a look, and he also felt it very strange that his heart was also calling out like the other people in the courtyard. High on top of the tree were 8 people hanging down. They were Qiu Songnian, Madame Zhang, Monk Xibao, Priest Yuling, and their other group members, making 7 of them, while the other person was slippery and hard to grip Yo Sun. The 8 of them had apparently had their acupoints sealed and all of their limbs tied up, and they had been hung up there, swinging to and fro. They were more than 10 feet above the ground. Besides, following the blowing of the wind, they could not move at all. All 8 of them had embarrassed expressions. which were rarely seen. 2 black snakes were slithering around their bodies, which were actually the double snake ruthless beggar, Yan Shan Xing's precious weapons. It was ordinary for these 2 snakes to be slithering about Yan Shan Xing's body, but when they were slithering about the other 7 people's bodies, expressions of fear and loathing was added to the angry and ashamed appearances of these people. Someone from the crowd leapt up. He was Nightcat, nothing he can do, Ji Wuxia. His hand was holding a dagger, and he quickly cut the bindings of Tung Cypress Wiz Duo. These 2 people fell from midair, and a short and stout old man extended his hand to stop them and put them on the ground. In just a brief moment, all 8 of them had been helped down by Ji Wushi, and each person had had their acupoints unsealed. Once Chu Songnian was freed, he promptly hurled some abuses. He then saw the crowd of people were wide-eyed, looking at him. Some were smiling, some were amazed, some were saying has, some were saying plot, some were saying careful, and some were saying life. What? Who is this person saying has? What does that mean? Madame Zhang took a glance and saw there was one word written on each of Chu Songnian's and the other people's foreheads. The word said, "Plot has been defeated. Be careful, worthless life." The other people were alarmed, and one by one they repeated, "Plot has been defeated. Be careful, worthless life." Oh, so there were 8 people tied up in midair, right? And each person had a word written on their forehead, right? And together, the words were, "Plot has been defeated. Be careful, worthless life." How did they know that it wasn't like... How did they know the order was like that? Maybe the order was different. Monk Shibao angrily shouted, "What plot has been defeated? Your granny! Which worthless life needs to be careful?" While Priest Yu Ling extended his hand, spat on it, and then rubbed his forehead, trying to wipe away the word. Zhu Qianqiu said, "Brother Yu, how did the 8 of you get captured? Can you tell us?" Yo Sun smiled slightly and said, "I'm ashamed to say it, but I was sleeping carefully last night and didn't know how it happened, but someone sealed my acupoints and hung me from the top of the tree. That thief was most likely using the 5 confusion poison to knock us out. Otherwise, how can these brothers' skills be of no use and fell into someone's plot? How can someone so wise and brave like Priest Yu Ling and Madame Zhang fall into this?" Madame Zhang snorted and said, "That must be it." She didn't want to linger and talk too much, so she hastily went in to wash her face. Priest Yu Ling and the others also followed her in. The crowd discussed about this, and many of them were clicking their tongues, feeling the incident was really strange. They all said, "Yu Sun's words aren't true." Some people said, "There are dozens of people sleeping inside the hall. If they use confusion poison, then dozens of us would get it. How come only a few of them got it?" Many people thought of the word plot from the phrase "plot has been defeated." They didn't know what kind of plot it was pointing at, so they came up with many guesses and couldn't decide which one was right. Someone said, "Which master hung these 8 people on that tall tree?" Someone laughingly answered, "Luckily, the Peach Valley 6 weirdos aren't here today. Otherwise, it'll be so noisy here." Another person replied, "How do you know it wasn't the Peach Valley 6 fairies who did this? Those 6 brothers are very eccentric. Most likely, it was them who did this." Zhu Qianqiu shook his head. No, it can't be." One of the earlier persons said, "Brother Zhu, how do you know?" Zhu Qianqiu laughed. Even though the Peach Valley 6 fairies' martial arts are high, their knowledge is very limited. I can guarantee you that they wouldn't even be able to write that word, plot. The crowd burst into laughter, thinking that what Zhu Qianqiu said was right. Everyone was discussing this interesting matter, and no one paid attention towards Ling Huchong, who was disguised as a servant and was wearing a stupid expression. Ling Huchang thought in his heart, what were these 8 people trying to plot? It must be something harmful towards my Hangshan school. A plot to a story or a plot in the ground? Oh, you think the plot doesn't, the word plot doesn't mean an actual plan, but like a plot in the ground? I don't know about that. Because it says plot has been defeated. Right? It doesn't mean like a plot of ground has been defeated. It means like a plan has been defeated. I don't know, we'll see. Afternoon on the same day, some people outside the courtyard shouted, "Weird, weird, everyone, come have a look." The crowd rushed out, while Ling Huchang slowly followed behind them. On the right side of the other courtyard, there were tens of people surrounding something. The crowd quickly sprinted to go there. Ling Huchang walked near and heard some people discussing about this. There were more than 10 people who were sitting on the ground facing the cliff. It was apparent their acupoints had been sealed, and they were unable to move. There were 8 words written on the wall of the mountain, and they were the same words as before. Plot has been defeated. Be careful, worthless life. Some people turned those people sitting on the ground around, and they saw the bear duo of the northern desert were among them. Ji Wuxia walked up to the bear duo and released their mute acupoints, but not the other sealed acupoints, leaving them unable to move. Ji Wuxia said, "There's something I don't understand here that I'd like to ask you about. I'd like to ask the 2 of you, what kind of secret plan are you involved in? Everyone here would like to know." Right. What plot? Tell us about it," the crowd demanded. Black Bear scolded. "Damn their 18 ancestors! What plot? Plot their turtle sons." Who sealed your acupoints? Can you tell us about it?" Zhu Qianshu queried. White Bear said, "It's good if I know. I was just walking peacefully around the mountain when my back suddenly felt numb, ambushed by that bastard. If it's a hero, then he would have fought me with a real saber, a real spear, sneaking an attack behind me. What kind of person is that?" Zhu Qianshu said, "That's fine if the 2 of you don't want to say it. This matter is already known to the others, but I see that there's nothing we can do about it. But I think you need to be very careful." Someone said in a loud voice, "Brother Zhu, they're not willing to disclose it. Then let them stay here for 3 days and 3 nights. Another person said, "Right, he who tied the bell on the tiger's neck is the only one to untie it. If you release them, that master will definitely put the blame on you, seal your acupoints, and hang you from a tree. It certainly won't be fun." Ji Wuxia said, "What you said isn't wrong. Brothers, I'm not sitting here on the side being a spectator. I'm actually a little bit afraid." Black Bear and White Bear looked at each other, and they were both furious. But it was pointless to start scolding, and they also didn't dare to publicly scold Ji Wuxi's ancestor. Otherwise, with them still being unable to move, they wouldn't be able to fight back if the opponent wanted to be rude towards them. Ji Wuxi laughed while cupping his hands to the crowd continuously. "Everyone, please." Then he turned his body around to walk away. The people crowding around them pointed and laughed, said a few words, and they also slowly walked away. Ling Huchang turned around and walked slowly. When he reached the outside of the other courtyard, he heard people clamoring and giggling inside. He raised his head and saw 2 people had been hung on the gongsung tree again. One of them was Monk Cannot Have No Commandment, and the other was Monk No Commandment. Well, who's strong enough to hang Monk No Commandment on a tree? It must be someone with really powerful martial arts. Ling Huchang was greatly amazed as he thought, Great Master No Commandment is Little Martial Sister Yilin's father, while Tianbo Guang is Little Martial Sister's disciple. The 2 of them would never give Hangshan School any trouble. If the Hangshan School has any problem, they would exert themselves to help. Why are they being hung on the tree? He was really sure he knew what was going on before, But suddenly his whole idea had been turned upside down. He thought of one thing. Great Master No Commandment is innocent like a child. He doesn't have any enmity with anyone. Why would anyone hang him from the tree? Someone must be playing a joke with him. No one here is strong enough to capture the Great Master No Commandment. This must be the Peach Valley Six Fairies is doing. But what Zhu Qianchu said before was very reasonable. The Peach Valley Six Fairies couldn't have written the word plot. He entered the courtyard slowly, as his mind was occupied with doubts. As he entered, he saw there was a piece of yellow paper stuck to each of Monk No Commandments' and Tianbo Guang's bodies. There were words written on them. The words written on Monk No Commandments' paper were, "World's #1 heartless, perverted, and lascivious man," while the words written on Tianbo Guang's paper were, "World's #1 in unseemly behavior, a person who does everything half-heartedly." When Ling Huchang read this for the first time, he immediately thought, these two papers are placed on the wrong persons. How come Monk No Commandment is a perverted and lascivious man? This perverted and lascivious words, they must be surely belong to Tianbo Guang, while the words unseemly behavior, they must surely belong to Monk No Commandment. He's not sworn off from killing, eating meat, and he even dared to take a nun as his wife when he's a monk. These are unseemly behavior. But this half-heartedly comment, where did it come from? But these two papers were stuck nicely to each of their necks, and it didn't look like someone had hastily stuck them wrong. The crowd was pointing, laughing, and discussing what was going on. Many people also said, Tianbo Guang is perverted. This is very well known in the world. How can this big monk be more perverted than he is? Ji Wuxia and Zhu Qianchu consulted each other quietly, and both of them sensed something was fishy. They knew Monk No Commandment and Ling Huchang were very good towards each other, and they must help these two people down first before discussing it further. Ji Wuxia quickly leapt up the tree and cut off the ropes binding their hands and feet, and released their sealed acupoints. No Commandment and Tianbo Guang were both looking very dejected, unlike Chiu Songnian and Bear Duel of the Northern Desert, who started hurling abuses as soon as they were released. Ji Wuxia quietly asked, Great Master, how did you also end up like that? But Monk No Commandment just shook his head and slowly took off the piece of paper stuck to him. He stared at the words written on it for a long time, and all of a sudden, he cried. This change was totally out of everyone's expectation. The crowd abruptly turned deathly quiet, and all of them were stupefied as they gaped at him. Both of his fists were clenched as they kept on hammering his own chest. He was becoming even sadder as he cried. Tianbo Guang tried to comfort him. Grand Martial Master, you don't need to be sad. We lost to someone's plot, but when we find this person, we'll break his corpse into thousands of pieces. He had not finished yet when Monk No Commandment turned around and gave him a hard slap. The palm hit Tianbo Guang, forcing him to back away for more than 10 feet. He staggered and had nearly fallen down. Half of his cheek had now started to become swollen. Monk No Commandment scolded. Smelly bastard! We were hung up here because we deserved it. You're very daring, wanting to kill other people. Tianbo Guang was confused when he heard Grand Martial Master say this. The person who had captured them must be someone with an impressive background that even Grand Martial Master did not dare to offend him. So all Tianbo Guang could do was agree to his Grand Martial Master. Monk No Commandment stared dumbly and started to cry and beat on his chest again. Suddenly he struck out again with his palm towards Tianbo Guang. Tianbo Guang was really fast, so he quickly evaded the strike as he called out, Grand Martial Master! Monk No Commandment did not chase after him even though his hit had missed. He took his hand back and with a slap, he hit a stone bench inside the courtyard, causing the crumbling stones to fly out everywhere. His left palm and his right palm struck out continuously as he started to cry again. It's a funny scene because Monk No Commandment is a huge dude, right? But this huge dude is just crying like a baby. More and more force was used with each strike. After more than 10 strikes, both of his palms were covered with blood, and the top of the stone bench had also crumbled to gravel. Then, with a thunderous crack, the stone bench was split asunder into 4 pieces. The crowd was amazed, and none of them dared to utter a single word. Every one of them was afraid to draw his anger onto them. Besides, whose head was stronger than that of the stone bench, if Monk No Commandment were to turn on them? Zhu Qianchu, Old Man, and Ji Wuxia looked at each other, and none of them knew what was happening. Tianbo Guang saw something was amiss, so he said, "Everyone, please look after Grand Marshal Master. I'll go look for Master." Remember, Master in his case is Yilin. Ling Huchong pondered. Even though I'm already disguised, little Marshal Sister Yilin is very careful. I should be careful not to let her discover my disguise. He had disguised himself before as a general and a farmer, but both had been male. This time around, he had disguised himself as a woman, and it was actually very comfortable. He was not feeling very confident in the disguise, and he was afraid his disguise would be revealed. So he quickly took himself inside the firewood house at the back garden and thought, the acupoints of the bear duo of the northern desert and the others are still sealed. Ji Wushu and Zhu Qianchu must be wanting to eavesdrop on what they'll be talking about at night. I should go to sleep now and wake up sometimes at night to listen to what they'll talk about. Ling Huchong drifted into sleep, hearing Monk No Commandments' wailing. Oh, he's still crying? He was amazed at this, but also found it funny. When he woke up, the sky was already dark, and he went into the kitchen to look for some cold rice to eat. After a long time, he heard no sound of anyone around. Thereupon, he slowly strolled around to the back of the mountain, where the bear duo of the northern desert and the other people were. Ling Huchong crouched inside the underbrush, far away, and strained his ears to listen. Soon he heard the breathing of people inside in the underbrush all around him. There were at least around 20 people concealed in the underbrush. Ling Huchong found this hilarious. Ji Wushu and the others must be wanting to eavesdrop as well. They've thought of the same thing. I guess there are many smart people here. He also thought, Ji Wushu is good. He unsealed the mute acupoints of those 2 cannibals of the bear duo of the northern desert, but he didn't unseal the other people's mute acupoint. Otherwise, once the bear duo open their mouths, they'll be told to shut up by their more competent comrades. Will you get to hear my doing Ling Huchong's girl voice? Oh, true. If Ling Huchong speaks, he'll have to do a girl's voice. So I have to do a Ling Huchong voice in a girl's voice. Well, Ling Huchong's voice is basically my voice anyway, so. Ling Huchong then heard White Bear swearing continuously. Your granny, so many mosquitoes on this mountainside. They want to suck my blood dry before they're happy. I curse their 18 generations of your mosquitoes' ancestors. Black Bear laughed. The mosquitoes are stinging you only, but not me. I wonder what the reason is. White Bear cussed. Your blood is smelly, so the mosquitoes don't want to eat it. Black Bear laughingly replied, I'd rather have smelly blood instead of hundreds of mosquitoes stinging me. White Bear replied with curses. After hurling abuses for a while, White Bear said, After my acupoints are released, the first thing I'll do is look for Nightcat and settle our business. I'll seal that bastard's acupoints and eat the flesh from his thigh bite by bite. Remember, these 2 are cannibals. Black Bear laughingly replied, But I'd rather eat those nuns. Their skins are so white, and their meat would be more tender. White Bear said, Mr. Yue ordered us to take those nuns to Mount Huashan, not to eat them. Oh, God. Really? Is Mr. Yue again? Is the master again? Black Bear laughingly said, There are hundreds of nuns here. Mr. Yue wouldn't know if we eat 3 or 4 of them. Ling Huchang was greatly startled. Master ordered them? Why did he ask them to take the Hangshan School's disciples to Mount Huashan? This plot must have been this thing. But how did they get my master's order? Suddenly, White Bear loudly shouted, Bastards! Black Bear indignantly said, If you don't want to eat nuns, then don't eat. Why do you have to scold me for? I'm scolding these mosquitoes, not you, White Bear said. Ling Huchang's mind was full of thoughts when he heard footsteps from the underbrush behind him. The footsteps slowly came near him. Ling Huchang thought, This person had better not step on me. That person was walking straight at him and stopped right behind him before crouching down and lightly pulling on his sleeve. Ling Huchang was startled. Ling Huchang was startled and thought, Who's this? Did he recognize me? Then he turned his head around. I wonder who it is. Under the blurry moonlight, he saw a beautiful round face. It was Yi Lin. He was startled and happy at the same time. He thought, So, my disguise has been discovered by her. Of course, I wouldn't look like a woman, even if I'm disguised in one. Yilin inclined her head to a side with her little mouth pouting, and she slowly stood up. She was still pulling on his sleeve, showing that she wanted to talk to him someplace away from here. Ling Huchang followed behind her as she went towards the west. The two of them didn't say a single word as they walked. Yilin led them along a narrow strip of mountain road away from the Tongyuan Valley. She suddenly said, You don't listen to what other people say and come up to this troubling place again. That's very dangerous. These few words, she said, didn't seem to be directed to him, but it seemed like she was talking to herself. Ling Huchang was startled and thought, She said I don't listen to what other people say. What did she mean by that? Is she pretending, or she really doesn't recognize me? He also thought that because Yilin had never jested with him, it was more likely that she didn't recognize him. Then he saw her turning north and gradually going towards the porcelain oven pass. After going around a level area in the mountain, they arrived besides a small creek. Yilin said softly, We always talk here. Are you sick of my voice? She giggled gently and went on, You never listen to what I say. Mute Granny, if you can really listen to what I say, I wouldn't talk to you anymore. Yilin said this so sincerely that Ling Huchang knew she only recognized him as the mute granny living on the hanging temple. Remember, there was a mute granny in the temple. So she is mistaking him for that granny. His childlike heart was roused, and he thought, I'll just play along and see what she has to say. Yilin led him by his sleeve towards a big rock underneath a big willow tree and sat down. Ling Huchang also sat down with his body leaning to the side and the moon behind him, so Yilin couldn't take a look at his face. He thought, Is my disguise really that good, that even Yilin is fooled? It must be because it's night, and it's not easy for her to recognize me. Ying Ying's appearance-changing technique is pretty good. Yilin gazed up at the moon and sighed. Ling Huchang desperately wanted to ask, You're still so young, why do you have so much to worry about? But at the end, he didn't say it out loud. Yilin said gently, Mute Granny, you're really good. I often pull you aside to tell you what I'm thinking, but you're never annoyed. You always listen patiently to what I have to say. I shouldn't have bothered you in the first place, but you treat me so nicely, just like my own mother. I don't have a mother. If I do have a mother, would I dare to talk like this with her? Ling Huchang realized she was going to pour her heart out and thought it was inappropriate for him to hear it. He thought, What kind of matter is she going to talk about? I'm deceiving her to reveal her innermost secret. I feel really apologetic. I should just quickly go. He immediately stood up. Yilin pulled on his sleeve. Mute Granny, you want to go? Her voice sounded really disappointed. Ling Huchong took a glance at her and saw her face looking sad, and her eyes looking like she was begging him to stay. His heart turned soft, and he thought, little Marshall's sister looks melancholy, and she has a lot of things on her mind. If she had nowhere to vent them, then they'll always be in her heart, and she might become sick. I just need to listen to what she has to say, and not let her know that it's me. Then she wouldn't be bashful. He slowly sat back down. Oh no. He's gonna listen to all her secrets. Yilin hugged his neck. Mute Granny, how good of you to accompany me for a while. You don't know, I have a lot of things in my mind. Ling Huchong thought, in my whole life, Ling Huchong is fated to cross paths with grannies. Earlier, with Ying Ying, I mistakenly took her for a granny. Now, Yilin mistakenly takes me for a granny. I called someone else a granny for a few hundred times. Now she's calling me a granny. It can be said that a good person also gets a good repayment. Yilin said, today my father nearly hanged himself to death. Do you know that? He was hung on a tree, and a paper was put on him, saying that he's world's #1 heartless, perverted, and lascivious man. In his whole life, my father only has my mother in his heart. So how can they say that he's a pervert? That person must have been confused. He must have wanted to hang that paper on Tianbo Guangzi's body, but he wrongly hung it on my father. Actually, it's not a big deal that it's mistakenly hung. Just swap them. There's no need to hang himself for that. Ling Huchong was startled, but he also found this funny. How can she say that the great master No Commandment wanted to commit suicide? She said he was nearly hanged to death, so he obviously didn't die. The words written on those 2 papers aren't good words, so once they're taken down, why would you put them up on themselves again? What? This little Marshall's sister is really naive. She really doesn't understand how things work in the real world. Yilin continued. Tianpo Guang hurried up to Xianxing Peak, wanting to speak to me, but he met Marshall's sister Yi He instead. She said he came up Xianxing Peak without permission, so without asking, she attacked with her sword, and he almost lost his life. That was really dangerous. Ling Huchong thought, I once said that the men from the other courtyard must not go up Xianxing Peak without my permission. Brother Tian's reputation isn't good, and Marshall's sister Yi He is quick to anger, so once she saw him there, of course, she would use her sword to attack. But Brother Tian's martial art is much higher than her, so Yi He was unable to kill him. He was just about to nod his head, agreeing to her, when he quickly thought, no matter what she says, whether I agree or not, I mustn't nod or shake my head. That mute granny wouldn't have been able to hear what she has to say. Yilin went on. When Tianbo Guang finally told her everything, Marshall's sister Yi He had slashed about 17 to 18 moves. Luckily, she held back and didn't really kill him. Once I received the news, I quickly went to Tongyuan Valley, but I didn't see my father. I asked some people, but they all said that he was inside the courtyard, crying and making a lot of noise before. He was really in a fit of anger, and no one dared to talk to him. They didn't see him after that. I went around the Tongyuan Valley trying to look for him, and finally I found him at the back of the mountain, hanging high from a tree. I was really worried and quickly took him down from the tree. I saw there was a rope around his neck and it was cutting off his airway. It was really a blessing from Buddha that I arrived there in time. I helped and roused him up. Then he cried, hugging me. I saw there was a paper hanging on his neck. There were words written on it, saying something like, "World's #1 heartless man." I said to him, "Dad, this person is really terrible. He hung you up before, and now he hanged you. He also put up the wrong paper and didn't swap it." My father was half crying and half saying to me, No one hanged me. I hanged myself. I don't want to live anymore. I told him, Dad, that person must have suddenly sneaked an attack on you, so you fell into his trap. So there's no need to be sad. Let's find and talk to him. If what he said isn't right, then we'll hang him up on a tree and put this paper around his neck. Dad said, This paper is mine. How can you hang it on other people? World's number one heartless and perverted and lascivious man. This is monk no commandment. How can other people exceed me in this? Child, you're speaking blindly. Mute Granny, when I heard him say this, I found it really strange, so I asked him, Dad, this paper wasn't wrongly hung? Dad replied, Of course not. I wronged your mother. That's why I wanted to hang myself. You don't need to worry about me. I really don't want to live anymore. All right, you guys like that? I did the monk no commandment voice in Yilin's voice. All right, give me 5 minutes. We'll be right back. 5 minute break, guys. And we're back. All right, so something weird is happening with monk no commandment, right? He just tried to hang himself. He just tried to kill himself by hanging. And he's super sad, and he says he deserves to be called a perverted man. So let's see why. Ling Huchang remembered monk no commandment had mentioned to him before that he loved Yilin's mother because she was a nun. So he became a monk because of her. Monk marrying a nun. It was really a rare and strange thing. He said that he had wronged Yilin's mother. It must be because he loved another woman later on, and that was why he had admitted to being a heartless, perverted, and depraved man. As he thought till here, he slowly came to understand some of these things. Yilin said, When I saw Dad cried miserably, I also cried. Dad then advised me, Good child, don't cry, don't cry. If Dad dies, you'll be all alone in this world. Who will take care of you? When he said that, I cried even harder. She said until here, when beads of tears dropped from her eyes. She looked really sad as she went on. Dad said, all right. Wait, Dad said, all right, I won't die, but I'm really sorry about your mother. I asked, how did you wrong Mother? Dad sighed and said, Your mother was originally a nun. You already know about this. When I first saw your mother, I immediately fell in love with her and wanted to take her to be my wife, no matter what. Your mother said, Amitofo, thinking of this kind of thing, you're also not afraid of Buddha. I said, if Buddha wants to blame someone, then he can blame me. Your mother said, you're a lay person. It's natural for you to take a wife. My body has already been pledged to Buddhism, and I'm free from worldly desires. If I'm to be moved by worldly desires, Buddha will of course blame me. How can Buddha blame you? I thought what she said wasn't wrong. It was me who has made up my mind to marry your mother, not your mother who wanted to marry me. How can I let Buddha blame her and put her in hell when she dies? How can I let that happen to her? That's why I went on to become a monk. Of course, Buddha will blame me. If we're sent to hell, then we'll go together as husband and wife. Ling Huchang thought, Great Master No Commandment is really the passionate type. He became a monk just to bear the Buddha's blame. Since he's so committed, I wonder how his heart could have changed. Yilin continued, Then I asked Dad, Did you marry Mother afterwards? Dad answered, Of course I did. If not, how did we get you? I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have. That day you were just 3 months old, and I was just carrying you outside the door for some fun, for some sun. I said, What's wrong with getting some sun? I said, What's wrong with getting some sun? Dad said, As luck would have it, at that time there was a good-looking madam riding past the door. She saw a big monk carrying a little baby and felt it was weird. After a few glances, she praised, "What a beautiful baby!" I felt really happy and said, "You're also very beautiful." That madam stared at me and asked, "Where did you steal this baby girl from?" I said, "What do you mean steal? She's my own baby." That madam suddenly threw a tantrum and scolded, "I'm asking you nicely, but you keep on teasing me. Are you tired of living?" I said, "How did I tease you? Aren't monks people? Can't we have children? If you don't believe me, then let me give you a look." Who could have thought that lady was so fierce? She took out the long sword slung at her back and stabbed it at me. Isn't that very unreasonable? Ling Huchang thought, Great Master No Commandment speaks frankly, and everything he says is always the truth. But when other people hear it, his words become nonsense teasing. Since he's already taken a wife and gotten a baby, why didn't he turn back to be a secular man? It's neither fish nor fowl for a big monk to be carrying a little baby girl. Yilin went on, I said, this madam was too fierce. I was clearly yours, and you didn't deceive her. What was she doing stabbing a sword at you? Dad said, Yes, at that time I quickly dodged and said, What are you doing indiscriminately chopping your sword for? If this baby girl isn't mine, then is she yours? That madam got even angrier and stabbed me 3 times. She didn't manage to hit me with her sword, so she thrust out even faster. Of course, I wasn't afraid of her, but I was afraid she might hurt you. When she stabbed me for the 8th time, I kicked out at her and sent her somersaulting. She stopped and scolded me. What a shameless monk, disgraceful and nasty person, sexually harassing a lady. It was at this time when your mother returned from the river bank, after washing the clothes, and she stood on the side to listen. That madam scolded me a few more times before she angrily got on her horse and rode away. She didn't even pick up the sword she dropped on the ground. I turned my head around to talk to your mother. She didn't even reply a single word I said, but she just stood there weeping. I asked her what's the matter, but she just ignored me. The morning of the next day, your mother was gone. There was a paper on the table, and there were 5 words written on it. Can you guess what they were? They were, heartless man, perverted, and lascivious. I carried you everywhere to look for her, but I didn't find her. Okay, so there was some misunderstanding. Monk No Commandment was carrying a baby. A random woman asked why he's carrying a baby, and she asked him why she couldn't believe that a monk had a baby. She couldn't believe that the baby was his, because like monks don't have kids, and she started attacking him, and then she accused him of sexually harassing her, and then his wife comes back and she's like, oh, okay, so you're sexually harassing another lady. She got mad and then she ran away. That's basically the story. I said, Mother heard what Madam said, and she believed that you really sexually harassed her? Dad said, You're right. Wasn't that an injustice? But later on I thought about it and believed not all of it was injustice, because when I saw that Madam, my heart was thinking, this lady is good looking. Think about it. I was already married to your mother, but my heart was still praising another woman to be pretty. Not only praising in my heart, my mouth was praising her too. Isn't that a heartless, perverted, and lascivious man? Ling Huchang thought, so Marshall's sister Yilin's mother was very jealous. Of course, this was a big misunderstanding, but wouldn't everything be all right after talking about it? Yilin continued. I said, did you find Mother afterwards? Dad said, I looked for her everywhere, but where can I find her? Your mother was a nun, so I thought she would go to a convent. I looked in every convent. One day I found the White Cloud Convent of the Hangshan School. Your master Ding Yi Shu Tai saw you to be very cute, and she really liked you. You were also sick at that time, so she told me to foster you to the convent, so I didn't have to bring you running around and endangering your little life. At the mention of Dingye Shirtai, Yilin couldn't help crying, and she said, "Since I was small, I've had no mother and master to raise me up. Wait. Since I was small, I've had no mother, and master raised me up. But master was killed by someone, and the person who killed master was big brother Ling Hu's master. You see how difficult this is? Big brother Ling Hu is just like me. He's had no mother since he was small, and his master raised him. But his life is even more bitter than me. Not only mother, he doesn't have a father as well. So of course he respects and loves his master. If I kill his master, then I'll get my revenge. But big brother Ling Hu will be very sad. My dad also said, after he fostered me at the White Cloud Convent, he looked in every convent in the world. Later on, he went on to Mongolia, Tibet, the frontiers, the western region, and even looked around in the poorest areas. But in all that time, he didn't hear a single word of my mother. Thinking about it, my mother must have blamed... Wait. Oh, I think a typo. Thinking about it, my mother must have blamed my father for sexually harassing that lady, so she committed suicide the next day. Mute Granny, when my mother became a Buddhist, she swore an oath in front of Buddha that after she entered Buddhism, she would no longer be involved in worldly desires. And in the end, she relented to father and married him. She hadn't given birth to me for long when she saw him sexually harassing a woman and got himself scolded as a disgraceful and nasty person, so of course she got angry. Her personality was very strong, so what she believed was wrong, so she was forced to commit suicide. Yilin let out a long sigh and continued. When my father explained these things, then I understood why, when he saw those words, world's #1 heartless, perverted, and lascivious man, he became really sad. I said, when mother wrote those words to scold you, did you give other people a look? Dad said, of course not. I didn't even tell anyone about it. Is it honorable to tell of these kinds of things? There's something fishy here. I think it must be your mother's ghost who has found me. She seeks revenge on me for blemishing her clean reputation and sexually harassing another woman. Otherwise, how come only these 8 words were written on the paper and there was nothing else on it? I know she wants my life. Very good. I'm going to go with her. Dad also said, when I couldn't find your mother, I really wished to join her in the afterworld. It's a pity I was too heavy. The rope broke. After I was hanging up there for some time, I tried a second time, but the rope broke again. He tried hanging himself, but the rope kept breaking. That's pretty funny. The guy's too big. Then I thought of getting my saber to cut my neck. I knew for certain that saber was on my waist, but suddenly it wasn't there. It's really not easy to die. I said, Dad, you're wrong. Buddha told us not to take our own lives. That's why the rope broke, and you couldn't find your saber. Otherwise, you would have been dead when I got there. Dad said, that's also good. It's most likely that Buddha is punishing me to stay in this world, to receive more bitterness, and not letting me go to the afterworld so quick to see your mother. I said, I thought at first that the papers on Tianbo Guang and you were wrongly hanged on each other, and that was the reason why you threw a tantrum. Dad said, how can they be wrongly hanged? Can not have no commandment was rude to you in the beginning. Isn't that called unseemly behavior? I told him to be a matchmaker to make that Ling Hu Chong marry you, but he always failed. Isn't that called doing things half-heartedly? Those 8 words really suit him. I said, Dad, if you tell Tianbo Guang to do that nonsense again, I'm going to get angry. Big brother Ling Hu liked his little martial sister before. Now he likes the young lady Ren from the Devil's Sect. Even though he treats me well, he's never put me in his heart. When Ling Huchong heard Yi Lin say this, he felt quite apologetic towards her. She treated him in such a sentimental manner, but he had never felt it in the beginning, and it was only recently that he gradually understood her feeling. But his real feeling was said clearly by her. He first loved little Marshall's sister, and now he loved Ying Ying with all his heart. During the time he traveled around Jianghu, he also rarely thought of Yilin. Yilin said, "When Dad heard me say this, he got angry and scolded big brother Ling Hu. He said, 'That Ling Hu Chong, he has eyes, but he can't see. He's even worse than cannot have no commandment. Cannot have no commandment. Can still see my daughter is beautiful, but Ling Hu Chong is the world's #1 idiot.' He scolded him with so many vulgar words. They're really terrible to hear, and I also can't repeat them. He said, 'Who's the world's #1 blind man? It's not Zhuo Longchan, it's Ling Hu Chong. Even when Zhuo Longchan's eyes are blinded, Ling Hu Chong is still blinder than he.'" "Mute, Granny, Dad is very wrong to say these things. How can he scold big brother Ling Hu like that?" I said, "Dad, Miss Yue and young lady Ren are 100 times more beautiful. Oh, come on. 100 times more beautiful than me. How can I be better than them? Also, I've already entered Buddhism, but I still appreciate Big Brother Ling Hu, risking his life to save me and helping my master. I still think about him sometimes. My mother was right. After you enter Buddhism, you should be free of worldly desires. If we're not free of those things, then Buddha will punish us." Dad said, "Once you enter Buddhism, why aren't you allowed to marry? If all the women in the world entered Buddhism and they didn't marry, then there'll be no one else in this world. Your mother is a nun. Didn't she marry me? And didn't she give birth to you?" I said, Dad, let's not talk about this. I'd rather that mother didn't give birth to me." She said till here when her voice became choking. After some time, she spoke again. "Dad said he's definitely going to find Big Brother Ling Hu and tell him to marry me. I was really worried. I said to him, if he mentioned this to Big Brother Ling Hu, then I'll never talk to him ever again. And when he comes to Xianxing Peak, I won't see him. If Tianbo Guang says this kind of nonsense thing to Big Brother Ling Hu, then I'll talk to Marshall Sisters Yiqing and Yihe and not allow him to step foot on Mount Hangshan ever again. Dad knows I can get what I said, so he was dumbfounded, just like that. I wonder when can I see him again? I also don't know whether he's going to commit suicide again. He's really making me worried. I found Tianbo Guang after that and told him to go with Dad and take care of him. After I finished speaking to him, I saw so many people sneaking around, going outside of the Tongyuan Valley, then hiding inside the underbrush. I don't know what they were doing, so I quietly followed them to have a look. But I saw you instead. Mute Granny, you don't know any martial art, and you also can't hear anything. It was very dangerous for you to hide in the underbrush, especially if someone sees you there. You should never go with other people to hide in the underbrush anymore. Did you think they were playing hide and seek?" Ling Wuchong was dangerously close to laughing. He thought, this little martial sister is very childish. She even thinks other people are childish too. And done with another chapter. Oh god, we have 5 more chapters, guys. And then we're done with the story. Dum dum dum. Yeah, she does not have a very high opinion of herself. Always putting herself down. All right. The next chapter is gonna be pretty funny. I know it. Yeah, it's a cute chapter. We get to see Yilin again. We hadn't seen her for a long time, so that was good. All right, guys. Ooh, check it out. We're gonna finish our wine bottle. There are so many dangling plot threads. Like what? What plot threads are left? Or what plot threads do you think are left? Dun, 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 dun. All right, cheers. Oh, you guys are right. This angle is a little bit better because it's more eye level. It doesn't seem like you guys, or it doesn't seem like you're looking down on me. Yeah. Yeah, and I fill up more of the space. So you're right. There's no like negative space up here. What is the wine? I don't know. It's a Sauvignon. That's all I know. It's some cheap wine, guys. Yeah, what other plot threads are left? We found out that the master killed the Shutais, right? Kill Ding Xian Shutai. So now Ling Hucheng has to kill him. Okay, because he promised, he vowed to kill, to avenge the Hangshan school. So, you bet the boss fight at the end is gonna be good. Oh yeah. What other plot threads are left? I feel like there are very few left. You're worried about Ying Ying? She's been left alone and someone's attacking and hanging people. Maybe. Yeah, yeah. So Lin Pingzhi is still out there, right? They're still, and Zhuo Langchan is still alive. So they're probably plotting against Yue Buchun, right? Which is okay, right? We want the bad guys to fight each other. Yeah. The master needs to be dealt with, but I think that's it, right? So Lin Pingzhi and the master need to be dealt with. That's your favorite white wine? All right, good. To be honest, all wine tastes the same to me. There may be little differences, but they're all pretty much the same. All right, guys. Oh, you're right. The Sun Moon sect. Oh, remember, Ling Hucheng still has that problem with his his essence absorbing martial arts, because it's supposed to cause him issues, right? He didn't learn from what's his face? What's the leader of the Sun Moon sect? He didn't learn the method to like perfect his essence absorbing martial art, right? Because remember, there's a flaw with the martial art that will cause you to die, I guess, at a later time. So he has to learn how to perfect that martial arts first, or he would die. Yeah, Runwal Singh, the leader of the Sun Moon sect or the demon sect. So he still has to teach Ling Hucheng how to perfect his essence absorbing martial arts. The only wines that taste very different are the fortified and ice wines. I kind of like rosé. Rosé tastes different, has a sweeter kind of taste. Yeah. But like to me, all red wines taste like red wines and all white wines taste like white wines. Yeah. Yeah, I may sound very unsophisticated. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, okay? I can't tell the difference. All right. Thanks for joining.